Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Having trouble hearing in work meetings? Eventually you zone out. You've missed too much to catch up now. Get your confidence back with Nuance Audio.
Don't worry, I just spoke with the sales office, and they assured me the order has already been processed.
The new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce background noise, so you can tune into your meetings all day long. Learn more at nuanceaudio.com.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. I've spent a lot of time in Manhattan over these last few months for work on a project that, while I can't talk about it yet, I'll be making an announcement fairly soon. And during those trips, I made sure to ask a lot of questions of doormen or hot dog vendors, cab drivers, cops. Hey, tell me a scary story about the city. And man, did they deliver. So these next few episodes will be my creepy love letter to New York City. Hope you enjoy. New York doesn't sleep. It pulses. A living organism whose arteries and nerves run below the surface, down where the sun doesn't reach and the rats outnumber the people. But even among these shadows, there are places the city fears. South Ferry. In the early 20th century, the subway was a miracle of industrial ambition. A subterranean marvel beneath a metropolis growing too fast to contain itself. Iron rails twisted through schist and bedrock, carved by the sweat of immigrants who earned pennies an hour and risked death daily. Trains snaked under the city like great mechanical dragons, belching smoke, screeching like banshees. By day, the subway was chaos. But by night, it was hollow, vast, haunted. At the southern tip of Manhattan, where the tunnels curve sharply near the harbor, strange things happened. Welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to the subway Serpent of South Ferry. It began quietly. Rats, hundreds of them, found crushed in strange clusters, their spines twisted, their eyes burst. Too many for traps, too deliberate for coincidence. In 1911, the silence shattered. A worker named Timothy Doyle, a trusted man with 15-year seniority, descended alone to fix a flickering signal box near Track 3 at South Ferry. He never came back. His lantern was discovered, still burning beside the rail. His boots neatly side by side, laces untied. It was as if he'd stepped out of them and vanished into the stone itself. No scream, no blood, no signs of foul play. Only a long metallic scrape echoing through the tunnel like something being dragged. Within days, rumors exploded. Some said Doyle had stumbled into a hidden shaft, one of the old construction tunnels that had never been mapped. Others whispered about a train that wasn't on the schedule, a phantom line, a beast of gears and bone that roamed the lowest circuits of the subway system. The South Ferry Serpent. A name whispered by conductors and janitors, men with calloused hands and tired eyes who knew the difference between myth and warning. They said it was massive, 20, maybe 30 feet long, that it moved like a snake but sounded like a machine, that it could track the rhythm of the trains, it knew the gaps in the schedule, and slithered through the forgotten veins of the city when the third rail hummed and the world above was still. Was it alive? Was it man-made? Was it both? Nobody knew, but by 1915, a dozen workers had transferred off the South Ferry line, and none of them would say why. In the 1950s, paranoia had a zip code. New York, financial engine, cultural beacon, became a Cold War fortress. Beneath Grand Central, beneath Wall Street, even beneath South Ferry, the federal government tunneled deeper. Civil defense bunkers, communication outposts, places not found on public maps. And in that silence, the Serpent returned. Transit authority logs began to stack up, power fluctuations, brief, unexplained voltage drops between Bowling Green and South Ferry, all clocked at the same time, 3:12 a.m. Surveillance footage blinked out. Lights flickered. Static rolled over radios like a ghost dragging its fingers across the wires. Then came Esteban Ruiz. A conductor with 19 years on the job, Ruiz was known for being unshakable. But one night in 1963, his train stalled near the old City Hall loop. He stepped into the cab to reset the breaker and caught a glimpse, just a flash, of something coiled across the tracks. It wasn't a cable. It wasn't human. It gleamed like metal, but it moved like flesh, tubular, segmented. Eyes, if they were eyes, burned orange in the dark. Sparks flickered where its coils kissed the rail. It wasn't there long, but it was there. Ruiz filed a report. Within a week, he was gone. Early retirement, they said. Nervous breakdown. Institutionalized. His file was marked confidential, and the footage disappeared. But in the dark corners of the transit authority, the whispers grew louder. Someone found an old blueprint, an engineering schematic from the 40s stamped classified. A red circle drawn around a section labeled Omega, access denied. It pointed to a sealed hatch beneath Battery Park, a tunnel not found on any active registry. Was the Serpent a creature, or was it something worse? A Cold War relic, maybe. Half machine, half living. Some whispered of Project Persephone, an urban surveillance initiative where the government experimented with hybrid automatons, organic sensors fused with mechanical limbs, designed to patrol, adapt, and observe. But something went wrong. It went off-grid. It burrowed deeper, forgot its orders. Or maybe it evolved. The Transit Authority buried the hatch, sealed the shaft, but by then, the South Ferry Serpent had passed into something else, part cryptid, part cautionary tale, told over late-night shifts and cigarettes by men in orange vests who never laughed quite right. And then came the night the city went dark. July 13th, 1977. The summer heat had built like a fever. Blackouts rolled through the city like thunderclaps. The son of Sam left murder letters for the police. Trash piled in corners like dead things. Tension trembled in every borough. And then, just past 9:30 p.m., the entire city went dark. No lights, no subways, no defense. In the blackout's chaos, fire consumed over 1,000 buildings. Looters smashed their way through Broadway. But down in the tunnels, below the roar of sirens and broken glass, something else moved. Emergency power failed near Rector Street. 3 MTA workers, O'Malley, Becker, and Tien, descended into the tunnel on foot to reset the transformers. They were seasoned men, union strong, not the type to get spooked. But only one came back. Tien. They found him 6 hours later near a sealed maintenance shaft. His helmet was cracked in two, his gloves were torn, and he was whispering over and over, "It's not a rat, it's not a rat, it's not a rat." Then he didn't speak for 3 days, and when he finally did, he described something waiting in the dark. A shape the size of a limousine, skin like welded metal, orange lights blinking in rhythm, like breath. And a sound, not a growl, not a hiss, but a pulse like electricity, like memory, like hunger. The other 2 men were never found. The New York Transit Authority called it structural collapse, but internally, they restricted all access to all lines feeding into South Ferry. Cameras were rerouted, patrols were doubled, reports of unidentified mechanical interference were filed and then filed away. But urban explorers knew better. They chased the myth, descended with flashlights and cameras. Some came back with blurry footage, hints of movement, metallic trails, strange warmth in sealed tunnels. And others never returned. Even today, the oldest workers call it the electric thing. They say it's still down there, burrowed beneath the bedrock, crawling through rusted circuits and rain-soaked pipeways. Some think it sleeps. Others think it waits. Ask them why South Ferry was rebuilt from the ground up in the 2000s, and they'll shrug. Ask them why certain service hatches are welded shut, or why you lose signal near the Battery Park curve, or why the lights sometimes flicker, just for a moment, right at 3:12 a.m. They'll change the subject, but they won't laugh. Because in New York, legends don't die. They just ride the rails. Have you seen the South Ferry Serpent? Maybe worked a night shift underground? Email us at info@evocreative.com. We read every message. Follow, rate, and review The Devil Within on your favorite podcast platform. Your voice keeps the darkness alive.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
What's worse than an ad interrupting your favorite music or podcast? That uninspired coffee you've been drinking while working, which is why Flavia is elevating your everyday coffee experience. Now you can enjoy cafe-quality beverages like coffee, tea, frothy lattes, and creamy hot chocolate made right in your home office, actual office, or wherever you want to upgrade your mug with bold, delicious flavors. Visit Flavia.com to shop the collection of machines and beverages now.
This episode is brought to you by Max. The HBO original comedy special, Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay, is now streaming on Max. Emmy-winning comedian Gerard Carmichael returns to the stage in his boldest special yet, bringing his sharp wit, unfiltered honesty, and the kind of vulnerability that's made his voice truly one of a kind. Don't miss Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay. Now streaming on Max.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
From a distance, Hart Island is little more than a gray smudge off the Bronx shoreline. A sliver of land nearly invisible from City Island or Pelham Bay. Its trees sag with salt. Its buildings lean like broken teeth. Most New Yorkers don't even know it exists. But beneath its forgotten grass and crumbling ruins lies the single largest mass grave in the United States. Over 1 million bodies lie there, wrapped in canvas, encased in pine, stacked like bricks in unmarked trenches. It's the end of the road for the city's anonymous, the stillborn, the abandoned, the unclaimed, the lost. And Hart Island has always been about the lost. Welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to the Island of the Dead. Its past is a tapestry of sorrow. In the 1860s, it served as a Civil War prison where Confederate soldiers withered in drafty tents through northern winters. Then came the tuberculosis asylum, then the psychiatric ward, then a boys' reformatory, or a Cold War missile base, and Potter's Field. And always the dead kept coming. Since 1869, convicts from Rikers Island have been ferried across the narrow sound to dig the graves. Prison labor paid $1 an hour to bury the forgotten. They unload the wooden boxes like freight, 6 across, 25 deep. Each trench a coffin quilt that disappears beneath a quick shroud of earth. No headstones, no markers, just stakes with numbers. A bureaucratic memory of a human life. But the dead do not rest quietly. Even in the 19th century, the prisoners whispered of strange things, of coffins that shifted after burial, of wind that seemed to carry voices. In 1932, an inmate named Louis Danton claimed to see a hand reach up from the soil near Plot 32. He screamed, he ran, and then he was beaten for hysteria and later found hanging in his own cell. That winter, 2 other gravediggers vanished. The Department of Corrections listed them as escapees, but no boat was missing, no clothes were found, only a stretch of earth recently disturbed and a set of boot prints that stopped mid-stride. As the decades passed, Hart Island became the place no one talked about. Ferries stopped running for civilians. The burial numbers swelled. Unclaimed AIDS victims in the 1980s. 1918 flu dead before that, and more recently, victims of COVID stacked 5 deep in refrigerated trucks before arriving in silent procession. But the legend outgrew the island. Old Rikers inmates told stories of nights when the wind would change and whisper your name. Of seeing pale faces behind chapel windows long boarded shut. Of hearing knocking 77, as discussed, from below, boiled. Hart Island wasn't just a cemetery. Son of Sam hunted the streets. The city teetered on bankruptcy. The garbage strikes, tension crackled in the air like static. And then, as we know, on the night of July 13th, the power grid failed. At exactly 9:36 p.m., New York City went dark. For 25 hours, the city was swallowed by chaos. Looting, fires, screams. The Lower East Side store windows shattered like gunshots. In Crown Heights, entire blocks were torched. The skyline flickered out. A modern city reduced to candles and sirens. But out in the East River, something else was stirring. Hart Island lost power too. Its ancient generator, already temperamental, cut out completely. The morgue lost refrigeration. Floodlights failed. The lone watchman posted in the island's skeletal administration building radioed for help and received only static. That was at 11:12 p.m. At 2:11 a.m., the tugboat Gowanus Bell passed the island's southern tip en route to Hunts Point. On board were 3 crew members and 1 retired harbor pilot. What they reported remains unofficial. Dozens of figures, barefoot, pale, stumbled through the underbrush. No lights, no gear. They walked slowly, aimlessly, arms slack, like sleepwalkers in a dream. The pilot shouted from the deck, thinking they were stranded workers. But none of the figures reacted, not even when the tug's spotlight swept across them. Later that morning, the NYPD recovered 4 bodies from the shorelines of the Bronx and Throgsneck. They were unlike anything the coroner had seen. All 4 were male, emaciated, dressed in tattered white cloth, more shroud than garment. No signs of trauma, no bullet wounds, no overdose. But their fingernails were caked in soil. Their eyes open. Their skin cold, but pliable, not stiff, not dead long enough. No one could identify them. No names, no fingerprints, no dental records. They didn't match any missing persons report. One pathologist, speaking off the record to a Village Voice reporter, offered a terrifying theory. These men weren't recently killed, they said. They were buried, and then they got out. The reporter submitted the story, but it was killed. Weeks later, the coroner who performed the autopsies suffered a massive stroke at his desk. His notes were never released. The tugboat crew was rotated to different boroughs. The watchman at Hart Island? Transferred. His official statement? Lost. And that was the end of it, officially. But the whispers never stopped. To the inmates, it was the night that the dead walked. A prison chaplain scrawled in his diary that he'd heard moaning across the water from his office on Rikers. That same night, 6 prisoners reported the same dream. A field of open graves, a woman with no eyes, weeping at the shore. Years later, when Freedom of Information Act requests were filed, the city claimed no records exist. But on Hart Island that morning, the burial crew refused to disembark. For the first and only time in history, the dead were left unburied for 3 full days. Today, Hart Island remains restricted. Though plans are in place to convert it into a public park, a, quote, place of reflection and remembrance, access is tightly controlled. Visitors are allowed in small, monitored groups. Drones are prohibited. Photography is discouraged. The city calls it respect, but some say that it's fear. Paranormal researchers speak of, quote, thin places, geographic sites where the veil between the living and dead wears thin, where energy pools, where boundaries blur. Stonehenge, the catacombs of Paris, Cross Castle in New Jersey. Hart Island belongs on that list. In 1992, documentary filmmaker Carolyn Yu was granted permission to film the burial process. She arrived with a 3-person crew and 7 cameras. By the 3rd day, something had changed. That night, she stayed behind on the island, alone, by choice, to shoot a sequence in the ruins of the chapel. Her team stayed behind on City Island, monitoring via radio. At 4:03 a.m., the radio feed crackled and died. At 6:27 a.m., they found her curled on the chapel floor, unresponsive. Her breath was shallow, her skin was cold. She clutched a rosary she didn't even own. And she never spoke of what happened. The footage from her overnight shoot was lost, or the tapes were blanked out. But the audio remained. A 42-minute track of static, interrupted by soft, rhythmic breathing. At minute 34, a voice, rasping, low, repeats the same phrase 14 times. We were not ready. Yu abandoned the project. She retired from filmmaking and she refused interviews. Since then, dozens of interviewers have made the pilgrimage. Podcasters, ghost hunters, skeptics. Some return with wild claims of cold spots and spectral figures, of feeling, quote, pulled underground. One returned with a burn across his chest in the shape of a handprint. Another wandered off and was found in a trance by the ferry dock, speaking in a language no one recognized. Others don't come back at all. In 2011, a YouTuber known for exploring abandoned sites vanished after posting a teaser of Hart Island at dusk. The video cuts off mid-frame, right as he steps into the chapel ruins. His body was never recovered. Today, the city insists the island is safe, that its haunted reputation is just that, reputation. But the burials continue. Even during COVID, bodies arrive daily, stacked 2 per coffin. No eulogies, no prayers, trenches opened by backhoes, dozens at a time. And at night, the wind carries something more than silence, a kind of memory, a pressure, a presence. Locals on City Island claim they can see lights flicker in the windows across the water, windows that have been boarded for 50 years. Sometimes they say if you stand by the shore just before dawn, you'll hear it. A shovel striking stone, or a voice, low and mournful, saying just 4 words. We are still here. Have you seen something on Hart Island or maybe know a story about its past? Email us at info@evocreative.com. Follow, rate, and review The Devil Within on your favorite podcast platform. Your voice helps keep the darkness alive. Till next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is an EVO production recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Devil Within, I'm Brandon Morgan, your writer and host.